I posted a video titled Destiny 2 In-Depth, Warlock Empowered Rift, How Much Does It Buff? And in that video, I not only explained the buff itself, but also asked what you guys, my viewers, what you wanted me to test not only during the beta, but also once the game is fully released. And I got plenty of suggestions, and I will be covering them in due time. One comment, however, sparked my interest. Something that I hadn't thought about really. The comment said, why are they getting a damage buff? It should be just a recovery buff. Titans should just get an armor buff, and hunters should just get an agility buff. And originally, I was very confused by this, especially from the first part, where when speaking about warlocks, it stated they get a damage buff, which implied that the other classes did not have a damage buff from their 4th ability. And this is incorrect, so I'll be using this video to prove that. Let's start with the warlock's empowering riff. We know based on my one singular, potentially incorrect test that the empowering riff loosely provides an 8.33% damage buff. This was found by taking the damage per shot for both head and body shots with a singular weapon against a singular boss at a similar range, both with and without empowering rift, and doing some simple math. If you want more information than simply remembering the warlock's empowering rift buffs you by 8.33%, you can get a little bit more information, not much, but a little, by checking out my video in the description. If not, here's what you need to remember. Warlocks provide an 8.33% buff while empowering rift is active. We now need to look at Titans, and this is where things can get really challenging to do before the beta is even live. You guys don't even understand what I'd have to go through to test this when I can't test it. I would have to watch a lot of 20-minute gameplays of Titan gameplay, hope they're using the correct Titan's shield, the one that provides an instant reload known as the Rally Barricade. I need to have them use a specific weapon correctly while using the Rally Barricade correctly, and at some point they need to reload that same weapon manually and potentially show all the gear on said characters so I can see the RPM that is shown on the items tooltip, which allows me to do some calculations. Luckily for me, it was just my plan, and some of the gameplay I already had provided exactly what I needed. This hand cannon, known as the SUROS JGS-42. This hand cannon has 10 rounds in the magazine, shoots at 138 RPM, and here's where the math begins. But in order to do so, we need to create a perfect situation where human error isn't involved, a theoretical situation where every shot is fast as possible, as fast as the game will allow, and every shot is at the same range, as well as every shot being either all precision or all non-precision damage. So we have a 138 RPM hand cannon that does 202 non-precision damage with a 10-round magazine. This equates to 2.3 rounds per second, which means it takes 4.35 seconds to empty the mag. If then you apply the instant reload from Rally Barricade, it takes 8.7 seconds to empty 2 full magazines. All this adding up to roughly 4,040 damage in 8.7 seconds while affected by Rally Barricade. So for now, just remember that with Rally Barricade, this specific weapon can do 4,040 damage in 8.7 seconds. With a rough estimation, we can say that the time it takes to reload this weapon is somewhere between 2 and 3 seconds. We're going to assume 2 seconds for this example to make it simple. We already know that it takes 4.35 seconds to empty the mag, and each shot at 202 damage, taking 10 shots, is 2,020 damage. Then after 2 seconds of reloading, we have about 2.35 seconds left to shoot as much as possible, which is about 5 more shots. 5.405 to be exact, but you can't shoot 4/10 of a bullet, so we're going to say 5. This is an additional 1,010 damage, bringing our total from 2,020 to 3,030 damage in 8.7 seconds without Rally Barricade. So if we compare the two damage numbers, the 4,040 in 8.7 seconds with Rally Barricade and the 3,030 damage without Rally Barricade, in a perfect situation with no human error, with this one specific weapon with these exact stats, roughly does an additional 1,010 damage. This is a 33.33% damage buff, which not only shows that Rally Barricade is a damage buff, just as Empowering Rift is, but also in this very, very, very specific case, it's not only better, but better by 25% when you compare it to the 8.33% that Empowering Rift does. And this may lead people to believe that there's a lack of balance. This may cause people to start crying wolf, saying the Titan's Barricade is better than the Empowering Rift, asking why Titans are so good and why does Empowering Rift suck. And I want you to understand a very important detail. This 33.33% buff is only for this specific weapon, and only because of its very specific stats. Let's make a weapon from scratch. This isn't a real weapon in the game as far as I know of, but let's pretend it's real just for this example. Let's say you have an SMG that has 600 RPM, a 20-round magazine that does 50 damage per shot. This means this weapon does 500 damage a second and takes 2 seconds to empty the magazine. totaling 1,000 damage every 2 seconds or 2,000 every 4, assuming the instant reload from Rally Barricade and a total of 2 emptied mags. If this weapon reloads in 0.75 seconds without Rally Barricade, we are able to say that we have 3.25 seconds to do damage with this weapon, which is roughly 1,625 damage. So because of this new weapon that has different stats, different RPM, different reload speeds, and different damage per shot, it takes our original 33.33% damage buff and takes it down to only a 23% buff. If that same reload only takes 0.5 seconds instead of 0.75 seconds, the buff moves from 23% down to 14%. Move that reload to 0.25 seconds, and we're down to less than the 8.33% buff that Empowerinh Rift gives, and in that specific situation, with a quarter-second reload, the buff goes down to 6.6%. And that's just messing with the reload speed. If we change the damage number per shot, or the mag size, or the RPM, this buff will change on every weapon and in every single situation. And I could do a very similar set of number crunching talking about the Hunter's Dodge, and I may do that in the future if demand is high enough, and if the demand's high enough, it means I'll just be doing it at a later date. But simply put, it's very similar to the way I calculated the Rally Barricade, but the dodge only provides a damage buff if the animation of the dodge is shorter than the reload speed. Like I said, right now, just trust me that the Hunter's Dodge is a buff sometimes, and sometimes it's not, and that's only when we're specifically talking about a damage buff, because remember, damage avoidance is still technically a buff, but again, it's kind of a complex topic, and we'll cover that later. When the original comment said, why are they getting a damage buff, I was really confused, and I was like, but all classes do, but then again, that was kind of complex to realize how it is. Just in that specific situation, the Warlock's Empowerinh Rift, it does 8.33% flat, and that applies to everything as far as I can tell right now. And with that one specific weapon, with Rally Barricade on a Titan, we have a 33% buff. And that can change if we make up theoretical weapons. You saw that it could be 23%, it could be 14%, it could be 6.6%. Everything can change, but all classes, every single one of them, if it has a reload, for example like Rally Barricade does, or the Marksman Dodge, which also does have a reload in it, or the Empowerinh Rift, which just gives a flat damage buff. Every class ability gives a damage buff, and like you said in that original comment, Warlocks should just have a recovery buff, which they do. Titans should just get an armor buff, which they do, and Hunters should just get an agility buff, which they do, but all of them provide a damage buff. Guys, the beta is tomorrow, and if you want me to test something, let me know down in the comments below. I'm going to do the sellout thing where I tell you guys to check out all the links in the description, the links to the Multilux community Discord, the link to my Twitter, my shirt, my second channel, as well as my Twitch channel, where I'll be streaming the beta in literally 24 hours from the time this video went live. Thank you guys for sticking with me through that long drought of not doing this in depth in these projects. I know this is what you subscribed for, and we are just getting started. But with all that said, I'm gonna get out of here. Say my name is Matt, and I'll see you guys in the beta.